Yo, what's shaking AC?
Well, I don't have any big stories today.
Okay.
Your teeth are still looking really white.
Well, thank you.
That
I
oral
have
hygiene, I think
it's
you
that oral
mentioned.
hygiene. Yep.
Yeah,
Brushing, flossing, you bet.
awesome. Those are important things.
They are. They're very important. In fact, almost as important as hiring appropriate people for your franchise system.
Okay, hit me.
No, okay, but in all seriousness, let's get right down to business because I got a really important question for you. And I think
Okay.
a lot of franchisors face this question is at a certain time, you're ready to hire people for your franchise system. Maybe it's the size of your franchise, how much money you have, whatever you decide that you want to hire. And oftentimes franchisors will ask you, who do I hire first? Right. And we've talked about that on your roundtables. We've talked about that on some of these rants, etc. But sometimes it's overlooked as to where you find these people. The natural inclination I feel that franchisors might have is, let's go find somebody in the franchising industry. Let's try to poach them away from another brand because we got a cooler brand and everything's better here. And, who doesn't love us and all that sort of stuff. And they're looking for people with franchise experience in the franchise industry because franchising is such a unique business model. And I wanted to get your input on that sort of mindset or philosophy, as well as whether you agree or disagree and how you'd go about finding the appropriate people, whichever path you choose.
That's an awesome question. And, I think this should actually be a roundtable topic someday. Well, maybe we have talked about it at the roundtables. You said that, didn't you? It's a doozy. So what we've seen again and again is that when people are hiring somebody, whether that's for to support franchisees or take calls of the franchise prospects that they've got, especially the first few calls in the process, that they think that because they don't have a lot of franchise experience, maybe themselves, this is more emerging franchisors we're talking here, that they're better off to hire somebody with franchise expertise. Now, actually, in a minute, we should talk about the difference between emerging and early stage versus established and how this can be impacted.
Okay.
But let's just right now, for emerging franchisors, it's usually because they have some sort of self-doubt about what they know in franchising. And they feel like if I bring someone on in a role of, say, doing franchisee support or franchise sales, if I bring them on and they've done that before, then they can bring in their expertise and systems and all that. But what we see again and again is that I think because of the self-doubt that the franchisor has, they sort of overlook whether or not this person is actually a culture fit for them and whether they have the right DNA and skills, and they let the experience in franchising trump all of that. And often what we see, because of that, and because they're probably putting out an energy about it that they, like the franchisor, that they are a little insecure. And the next thing you know, this person that they hired is walking all over them, or, not listening to them because they think that they have that expertise that they are bringing in, which they maybe do. But just because somebody has worked in another franchise, whether that's field support or done franchise sales, that doesn't mean they're good at it, right? They could fabricate it and make it look like they were good at it, and you wouldn't really know. And you could even get a track record or whatever. But if they're not a fit for your brand, then it doesn't matter what their track record was wherever else they are. So I think that is what happens with emerging franchisors.
Okay. So let's talk about then from a standpoint of like Fran Dev, for example, right? When you're hiring somebody to do Fran Dev, which I mean, your Fran Dev person could be the one that's closing the leads, or they could be the one that's finding the leads, or it could be, a combination of both, right? Maybe you have a different lead source and they're just closing it, whatever, right? But you're looking at kind of three different aspects here, right? Are they a culture fit for your company, right? Will they like work well with the team? Do they understand your mission, your values, all that sort of stuff? Do they have the skill set in franchising? Understanding how franchising works, maybe, to the degree of knowing what an item 19 is, an FDD, all that sort of stuff. And finally, do they have the skill set in that particular discipline, like sales? Maybe they were a good, Al Bundy shoe store sales guy or whatever, right? So out of these things, it sounds to me like you're saying you got to make sure that they're sort of a fit for the company, and then you can teach them the rest. But at what point do you kind of look at, I could teach the franchising component, I could teach the sales component, maybe I can teach both? Like, how do you distinguish then? Like, like what's priority here?
Just tell me what the priority is.
Yeah.
Well, I always think that the culture fit is like the culture and the sort of just DNA of the person is probably the priority. They've got to have the right, I'd say skills, not necessarily skills, but again, I keep using the word DNA, like traits. So like a good salesperson, it doesn't necessarily mean they've done sales before, but they have the right traits. They're persuasive. That might be a trait they have. They're charismatic. They're friendly and outgoing and energetic, and they're confident. Those are some traits I'd be looking for somebody that's going to be doing sales. And then culture fit, do they fit your culture? Those are things you got to look at. What is your culture? What are your core values? Are they aligned with that? You've got to look into those things. When it comes to the franchise expertise, what we're seeing again and again is, and doing, especially, with both emerging and established franchisors, is that we at AC Inc. actually can train them on all of the steps. We actually have developed curriculum for franchise development training, which I think you've seen. Everything from how to identify the ideal franchise prospect from both a high performance standpoint and just DNA for that brand, to the whole process, why there's a process, how to keep people to a process, all the way through to the sales techniques that you need to use, how to surface objections, how to handle objections, how to move a prospect from one step to the next if they're dragging their heels. So that's what I think I'd be doing if I were a franchisor, is trying to find the right DNA and then train them and coach them on those things. So that would apply to, and that also can apply to field coaches. We have all that curriculum.
What it sounds to me like you're saying is you're sort of dividing it into like tangible soft skills and like intangible soft skills and tangible hard skills, right? Like if you're hiring an engineer to design a bridge or an architect, they need to be able to design that bridge so it doesn't collapse, right? So if you're hiring a fran dev person, you want them to check all the boxes that come along with the fit for the company, and then the critical boxes that are there for them to be a fruitful salesperson. And then after that, you can train all of the franchising components to it.
Yeah. Because a lot of it is I hate the word common sense because I find there really isn't such a thing, but a lot of it is sort of logical. And this all comes from, we've done this a number of times with clients, but it comes from me back in the day where I was just on my own and I was working with a client, and I saw that we needed to get the fran dev off her plate, like the earlier calls that I thought, is there anybody else on your team that has these sort of sales traits? Like I said, loves the brand, a little bit, maybe persuasive, maybe a bit of a leader. And this person did have someone like that. And we got her coached and trained. And then I trained her on everything and then worked weekly with her to say, like, tell me about this, what's happening with that. And then as she dealt with the challenges, we were able to work through them, and she's doing amazing at it now. So yeah, that's our approach. And just I'll touch on the established franchisors quickly here too, is that it's actually the same thing. I don't think that you need to find somebody, like, it's the same thing. If you've got somebody that's right in front of you that has the right traits for any of the roles you're looking for, and they just don't have that coaching, consider whether you could just get them, trained and coached on franchising, just like a lot of marketing people in franchising end up doing. A lot of marketing people come in without franchise expertise and they have to learn it. Well, we can fast track that. And I'm not doing this as a sales pitch, but just, I think it's more of an eye opener that we've had, that people think automatically that just because they have some kind of franchise experience that they're going to be a fit.
Yeah, I've noticed that amongst my franchisor peers, specifically marketing, that when they've hired somebody who has a marketing skill set and is a fit for their culture, they end up being like incredible assets, even though they may not know anything about franchising. They learn that.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot too. So there you go. That's the answer to your question.
Awesome. Let's wrap it up then, AC.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Go be awesome.